In fact, let's go there. So you talked about doing due diligence on three different people: the land seller, or the land company if it's a land company.
Yes.
So let's start then with, because in your case it was you were buying this from the actual owner of the land, or the person who said they're the owner of the land.
Yes.
So how do you start doing the due diligence on the land seller in this case?
Okay, first thing, I never deal with brokers or agents at that point. Brokers and agents, especially unlicensed ones, are well and good to sort of feel opportunities, but at the point that I'm visiting the site, the landowner has to be present. Otherwise, I'm not interested.
His brother in this case was a land broker.
Yes, in that case, the brother brokered the piece of land in the transaction, but even then, the guy showed up. When I visited the site, I have to meet the landowner. Now, how do I know that they're the landowner? They have to provide me a certified copy of the title deed or show me the original one. I will look at the names and the details imprinted on the title deed. I will ask them for their national ID card and compare. It's a face comparison, very superficial, but that's the first step, because how do you know the guy showing up on the site is the actual landowner? Just because they say they are doesn't make them the landowner.
Yeah.
So their details have to line up on the title deed document. That's the first step. Along with that, I will ask for their KRA PIN certificate, because you will eventually need it at the point of transferring to yourself. And it's also a great due diligence point, because anyone can right now go on KRA's online portal, enter a PIN number, and it'll bring up the name registered to that PIN number. If that name matches with the ID and the title, that's another check.
Oh, nice.
Right, so there's simple things you can do, but we tend to go a bit deeper because we're risking a lot of capital, borrowed capital, whether from private investors or institutional investors. We cannot have any doubts whatsoever about the ownership and the legitimacy of the documents. So beyond that, we ask for the documents and particulars for the wife or the spouse. So sometimes we're dealing with female land sellers and they have a husband. We need their details as well as all children over the age of 18.
Whoa.
The reason we do that is because now, constitutionally and as part of the transfer process, you require spousal consent for land to be transferred from one person to the other if the land is currently registered to an individual.
Okay.
They require spousal consent. And the spouse has to swear an affidavit prepared by an advocate, swearing to the fact that they are the spouse legitimately. Ideally, you want to ask them for a marriage certificate or some other form of evidence to corroborate that they are the wife or the husband, right? Because there have been situations where people didn't want their wife to know they were selling off the land, and they paid some random chick to come and pretend to be the wife. And then you have issues later. So we ask for all those documents for the spouse or spouses. In the Maasai culture, it's not uncommon that the man has multiple wives. We must have the documents for all of them, as well as children over 18. On top of that, we like to get the chief and the sub-chief involved to witness and sign off on the sale agreements. So these are all points of reference to just hone in deeper on this issue of who is the actual land seller, because you can't fake ownership from the community, at least not for long.
Yep.
And even in cases where it's possible, we interview the neighbors, because those are the guys who know about family drama that will not show up on a search. So in some cases, you find that the documents check out, you got the nice feeling, everything is fine, but you learn that the guy who's selling you the land received a bigger piece of the family property from their father as inheritance than the two brothers on either side, and they feel some type of way about it. And every time he tries to sell to someone, they show up with pangas and machetes and will not allow you access to the piece of land. So you may very well complete the transaction and legally be the owner of record as far as the government is concerned, but then you can't use the land because of all the drama between siblings and whatnot. So, I like to do deeper due diligence in that regard, especially when you're dealing with an individual. Yeah.
At this time, what external people have you brought in to support you in your
my diligence? So at that point, I'm dealing with a licensed advocate of the High Court of Kenya. I say that very intentionally because not all advocates are licensed to practice for that year if they haven't renewed their license. It's a minor technicality that could give you massive exposure in the event of problems later, and you're told you weren't even using a licensed advocate. They had not paid their annual license fees to the Law Society of Kenya to practice for that year. Yes, they went to law school, they passed the bar, but they haven't renewed their annual license. So use a licensed advocate of the High Court of Kenya.
So you have to do DD also, the lawyer.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's documents you ask them for. Give me a copy of your renewed license to practice this year and your license number from Law Society of Kenya. Now, beyond that, they have to have competence in the field. They have to be, I prefer to use specialists in the conveyancing field, even though most advocates can basically do this in their sleep in general. I find that those who have a focus on this particular type of transaction are a lot more efficient. They have relationships at the registries, they have clerks who can move swiftly to get things done quickly. They know what to troubleshoot for. So you're better off dealing with one who specializes in conveyancing, right? And at this point, I have given them the owner's ID, the PIN certificate, certified copy of the title, if not the original, the spouse's documents. They know how to get in touch with the chief and the sub-chief, and they're the ones conducting the search with the registry. And by this, I mean the simple search. You fill in a form. There's a very specific process. You pay the fee. It's supposed to be free, but in many cases, they still expect you to pay a small fee as part of admin costs, especially if your lawyer is using a clerk to go to the registry to get the search reports done. After the search report is out, I ask them to then do one on the green card, because when you do a search, the government looks at the green card in the registry to produce a search report. After that's done, I ask my advocate to ask for a certified copy of the green card, just to make sure that the search certificate I was given matches what's exactly on the green card, and there's no monkey business internally from the registry side.
Okay, somebody may be hearing the word green card for the first time. And where is this even been done? Is this been done in Nairobi? Is this been done in the counties? Is this been, where is the lawyer doing this? For example, and let's just go back to the situation for Kajiado. Yeah, in Buko.
So Imbuko is under Kajiado registry in Kajiado town, Ministry of Lands registry in Kajiado town. My lawyer happens to be officed in Nairobi, which is why, again, I say if you're dealing with one who specializes, they have the internal infrastructure to manage the movement back and forth to wherever is necessary. So in this case, they will do the search in Kajiado registry, lodge the application, the registrar will produce a search certificate, and also they will send the formal letter requesting for the certified copy of the green card to the same registry, right? Because the registry is there. There are several registries throughout the country by zones, so you would have to know which registry you have to do your search in. Yeah, and this is why you need the services of a licensed advocate of the High Court of Kenya. I can't stress that enough. You can't do this stuff on your own. You will not be as efficient. And you need that legal protection.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the green card, when we're having a conversation, you've talked about the green card. Why is this document so important? Don't you already have the title?
Yeah, so the green card is, in many cases, a literal green manila card sitting in a file at the registry. Very limited access to it, usually by the senior registrar and the supporting registrars. No one has simple access to that document. And it contains everything about the property. In actual fact, it is the one that gives birth to your title deed. So just because you have a title deed doesn't mean that all is fine and dandy. If I have a title deed that is not reflected on the green card, then that title deed is useless. It's worthless. Not even worth the piece of paper it's printed on. So, you want to make sure the details in the green card at the registry are accurate and agree with the report that was produced for you.
What are some of the details that are on the green card, if you were to give examples?
Yeah, so a history of ownership generally from 1963, when the government of Kenya took possession of all the lands from the Queen of England within its sovereign territories, down up until now. It'll show who the government sold or gave the lands to, right? It'll show if that person
gave... The first person that the government gave?
Absolutely.
Okay.
From 1963. Some go as way back as 1952. I've seen some for 1950s, especially in Nairobi CBD. But it'll contain the history of ownership, any transaction relating to that title deed or that property throughout history from then until now, whether it's bank charges because they took a loan and didn't pay and it was auctioned, who the new owner was, if there was a fraud case involved, if it was solved, if there was a discharge of the loan, everything will be contained on the green card, which is why it's important that you ask your advocate to requisition formally a certified copy of the green card. Now, that's something you could probably try to do on your own, but it's incredibly difficult as an individual as opposed to using your advocate, because normally when a green card is called for, it usually has to do with some fraud investigation. And so we found that over time, every time we tried to ask for one, the registrars would get nervous immediately. Who is asking and why? Why do you want it? Because also if there was foul play or some monkey business internally, they want to sort it out before they produce it, right? If it's a DCI investigation, they're very uneasy about producing that document. But if you're using a licensed advocate who makes a formal request in writing to the registrar, it's a lot simpler because they understand the pretext for asking for it. It's part of due diligence, whatever. And in the event of any monkey business, a licensed advocate is able to deal with it according to the law.
I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Whew, this is, it's a lot. It's a lot. And
it
definitely
is, yes,
I'm beginning to see why you need a licensed representative from LSK. But let me ask this now. I'm sort of understanding you doing due diligence on the person who you are buying land from.
Yeah.
What about if we are buying land from you? So what kind of due diligence do we need to do if an individual is buying land from a company? So like Goshen or Grand Acres.